So, I was on YouTube and the Overlord released a new video about another potential rumor with Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. Now, I'm sure many of y'all by now have heard about the potential of time travel being introduced into the Rise of Skywalker. Now, for those who keep up, or somewhat keep up with the canon, like my case now, time travel's already been canonized. It was in Season 4 Star Wars Rebels when Ezra found a temple dedicated to the father, the sister, and the brother. He entered it, which brought him to a realm in the Force, which basically allowed him to not necessarily time travel, but see different events in time, of which he used accidentally to save Ahsoka, and that's how Ahsoka survived her duel with Darth Vader on Malachor. So, time travel's already been introduced, or at least the ability to alter timelines. And with the Rise of Skywalker, you know, it could be very easily to introduce time travel into the Rise of Skywalker and make it to where our heroes go back in time, and you can do it to where they warn Luke of the potential of what Ben's going to do, or they go back even further and stop Order 66 from ever happening, or they go back even further than that and prevent the Clone War from ever happening. I mean, sorry about that, folks. I mean, there's a lot of things they could do with this time traveling, because in Rebels, not only could Ezra, pull Ahsoka into the area with him, it's also been proven that Ezra could have walked into that particular point of time as well, because the Emperor was trying to tempt him to enter a port in the Force which would allow him to be with his family again, but at the same time, that would have gave the Emperor access to that area in the Force realm, as I'm going to call it, to do whatever he wants. So, what is stopping Rey from doing the same thing? Now, in the video that the Overlord talked about, basically, Rey is Shmi. Yeah. Time travel. Rey, but yeah, in the video, Rey is Shmi. Anakin's mother. Well, they say that this is the end of the Skywalker saga, and if time travel is used, and if Rey is Shmi, well, what better way to end the Skywalker saga, I guess, than to literally put it in a continuous loop? Because you go through the events of the Rise of Skywalker, Rey goes back in time, becomes Shmi, gives birth to Anakin, and then it just happens all over again. And since JJ has came out and said that he's also considering what happened in the prequels with the Rise of Skywalker, well, I mean, that would be one hell of a way to put the sequel trilogy in. Oh man, I can't even imagine it. I just cannot imagine it. But what I want to talk about is the Overlord. I don't think he keeps up with canon a lot. And that's not his fault. I get it. He may not care anymore. Honestly, I rarely care. I just keep up with what little bit I keep up with so I can continue to make videos when I'm not doing political videos. So let's talk about this. Alright. So it has been canonized that Anakin is a creation of the Emperor, or Palpatine. Palpatine manipulated the midichlorians inside Shmi, and, as Shmi said, she just became pregnant. She didn't know what happened. Well, that was Pimp Papa Palpatine doing his Sithy magic, right? You get what I'm saying? So, if Rey is Shmi, she goes back in time and she becomes Shmi, is it possible that Palpatine discovers her? And, maybe Rey doesn't really recognize the Emperor of what he looked like younger. Maybe she does. I don't know. But it could be highly possible that a young Emperor, since JJ has said that the Emperor is returning, like the Emperor is back. We don't know in what format, we don't know in what way, but the Emperor is back. So if Rey goes back in time, the Emperor could easily find her. Now, we also know that it has been, I'm sorry, folks, I lost my train of thought. Alright, we also know that Rey is incredibly powerful. And the video that I made about the power level scaling, using Star Destroyers, Rey is obsessionally, just incredibly powerful in the Force. And we also know that a mind wipe is not uncommon. Because if you go back to KOTOR with Revan, the Jedi Council did wipe Revan's mind, to make him forget the Dark Lord past and forget the fact that he was a Jedi, and they reprogrammed him, to have a different identity. Now, of course, Revan was incredibly powerful in the Force, so he eventually got his memories back. And, you could sit there and think that, well, if Palpatine erased Rey's mind, said, okay, you are now Shmi Skywalker, and, he used her for his, his experiments, you also have to think, it gets really confusing. So give me a moment. He could wipe her mind, but then you can go back to KOTOR and go, well, Revan got his memory back, why wouldn't Shmi get her memory back? Well, yes, this is a valid argument, because if Rey got her memory back, she could have easily traveled to the Republic, I'm sorry, not the New Republic, the Republic, went to the Jedi Council and was like, I'm a Force user from the future, this is what happened, Palpatine's the Sith Lord, we gotta stop him. But when the Jedi erased Revan's mind, they were using the light side of the Force. Palpatine is a Sith, and he's also a Sith alchemist, my apologies. So it's highly possible that Palpatine knows a certain type of Sith enchantment that not only erases one's mind, but also puts it under lock and key, to where they can't get their memory back, no matter what. Because, as Palpatine said in Revenge of the Sith, the dark side of the Force is the gateway to many abilities that the Jedi and many others would consider unnatural. So, I would sit there and bet money that Palpatine probably does know some form of a Sith alchemy spell that does lock away one's mind. So, anyway. So Rey comes from the future, Palpatine finds her, captures her, erases her mind, gives her the new identity of Shmi Skywalker, uses her for his experiments, and then the events of Episode 1 happen. I don't know how I feel about that. That would literally be putting the Skywalker saga in a continuous loop. Nothing would change. You would get to a certain point of the timeline, of which the end of that timeline would be Rey going back in time, and it would just... It sounds really lazy. Truly, it sounds incredibly lazy, in my opinion. And considering that J.J. Abrams, when he was doing the Kelvin timeline in the Star Trek movies, the first thing that happened to reboot the Star Trek timeline, time travel. Why not with Star Wars, JJ? Why not with Star Wars? Why not make it to where time travel happens and Rey becomes Shmi, and you just put Star Wars in a continuous loop? And if JJ does that, he would essentially, put his seal, his mark, and say that if it wasn't for his creation, or his creation would be now part of the bigger story Star Wars, even if it's a continuous loop. I'm at a loss of words. I am truly at a loss of words. I just don't know what to think about this. I mean, making Rey Shmi I don't know. I truly do not know. I mean, evidence is there to support it. Time travel's been introduced. Palpatine was the creator of Anakin, and Palpatine is returning. I really don't know, folks. I mean, I guess if you go down that path, that would explain why Anakin and Luke and Ben is so powerful, is because they are descendants from Rey, who is basically a Force god at this point in the Star Wars timeline. So, I mean, it would make sense on why the Skywalker bloodline is incredibly powerful. And it would also make sense on why Palpatine, took great interest in Anakin. And, it would also make sense why, if Rey did become Shmi and Palpatine locked away her mind, why he, made her a slave, put her outside the reaches of the Republic. Because, he would know for a fact that if the Jedi discovered Rey, Rey could tell them of who Palpatine, what Palpatine's identity is. She would be able to warn them, of which then the Jedi would be able to strike down Palpatine before the Clone War, before Order 66, and all that fun stuff. And plus, if Shmi was discovered earlier, the Jedi would have gotten a hold of Anakin at a much younger age, which, in the comics it says one of Anakin's biggest flaws was he was too emotional. He was a slave to his emotions, which is what Palpatine used to help turn Anakin to the dark side. I mean, I could see it. I can see it. And honestly, I think a lot of y'all can see it too. This just sounds like lazy writing to me. And honestly, time travel in recent movies, well, sci-fi movies, is kind of becoming we backed ourselves up into a corner, so how do we fix this? Time travel. I don't know, folks. I'll put a link in the description to the Overlord's channel. Definitely check it out, and I got nothing else to say. I gave what he said, I gave the rumor, and I gave my opinion and the theory. And honestly, sitting here thinking about everything, I can see it. I can absolutely see it. Folks, y'all have a good day.